Hello guys, welcome back. And now we are discussing about the women's physical trainings and physical activities in the ancient time. So women's physical training had many similarities to the men's, but was markedly tolerized towards their physical requirements. They generally meant that it had an increased emphasis on agility and reduced emphasis on the power and endurance. In general, the training was notably less intense than that undertaken were related to the fertility. Whilst a discussion on the women's physical training is relatively scarce in historical sources, there were two reasons which prominent considered to be the text of the 19th century France. The first, in the intense physical training was not compatible with a woman's menstrual cycle. The two together could lead to exhaustion, especially during the adolescence. For similar reasons, it was considered to be incompatible with the pregnancy and the periods of the breastfeeding. The second reason is that the intense physical training tended to involve or be preparation for direct physical competition, which would involve taking various knocks and impacts. It was considered that if a woman was stuck in the area of her uterus, it could cause long-term damage and negatively affect fertility. Whilst it is unclear to what it was extent such positions apply to the women's training throughout the history, it is clear that the intense and the prolonged physical training and full contact games have been avoided in the general. The more common exercises which were undertaken by the women exclude the running, excluding the sprinting, jumping, light stone or the shot put, light dumbbells exercises, archery, fencing, swinging, Indian clubs, swimming, ball games, racket sports, and various forms of the gymnastics, and heroin games were the women's equivalent of the ancient Olympic games that were took place prior to the men's competition. According to the historian E. Norman Grandner, at the festival there were races for the mensual and the medians of the various ages. Their course was 500 feet, or were 1/6 than the men's stadium. The medians ran with their hair down their backs, or short tunic reaches just below the knee, and their right shoulder bare to the breast. The victors received crowns of the olive and a share of the heifer sacrificed to the Hera. They had the right of the setting up their status in the harem. It is notable that historical artwork which depict women on average shows them with significantly smaller breasts than women's in the modern era. In modern days, women's athletes and the warriors tend to be respectable, either not wearing any form of breastplate, or more rarely use a breastband, and such as demonstrated in the Roman Vinci girls and Mosaic bronze figures of the running women from the Sparta. The bearing of one breast was a sign that woman was engaging in the athletes or warfare, and this is present in the British Museum. Victors of the Herion Games represented near to the start of a race, 5th century BC. A statue of a wounded Amazon who were warriors with a performance for archery, musician, poetry, and an acrobat featured on a champion camel, Italian red figure Hydra, and the music called the coterie of the winners, and the nicknamed the Nikki Girls shows Roman wood activities, engage in the athletic activities such as swinging a discus, hitting a ball to each other, and stripping whilst using dumbbells. And in athletics is in a gym environment. The exercises exclude Olympic rings, climbing the underside of a ladder, balance beams, and spinning around a high horizontal bar. Grade collection and students cooperate to scale a high wall. The activity involves lifting someone up, wall walking, and pulling someone up in the 19th century. And this is all about the to create and exhaust and to emerge the women activities in the ancient times. And this was main physiological reasons women were not supported to train like men, considered to be the context of the 19th century. In likely in the France, to the intense physical training was not compatible with the women's menstrual cycle, but this take some place in the Olympics games that are held nowadays in the world. The two together could lead to exhaustion, especially during the atropsia. For similar reasons, it was considered to be incompatible with the pregnancy and the periods of the taking various knocks and the impacts, and increased the agility and reduced emphasis on the women's physical training. Training was not compatible with the women's menstrual cycle, but this was considered to be one of the stock culture. And this was preparation for the direct physical competition, which would involve effect fertility and the other sports like swimming, ball games, racket sports, and the various forms of the gymnastics. The Hervan games were the women's equivalent of the Asian Olympic Games, and took place prior to the men's competition, and to the festival that were races for medal of the various games. Many festivals were held and managed at the time to held these such games, and their courses was 5,500 feet, or 1/6 less than the men's stadium. And the midwomen ran with their hair down their backs are short, tuning reaching just below the knee, and their right shoulder bare to be breast. And the victors received the crown of the leaf and the share of the heifer scare to the hera. And many statics were employed over the men, over the and women's that were athletes at that time. And many implementations were completed at that time, such as bronze figures of the running woman from the Sparta. The bearing of one breast was a sign that a woman was engaging in athletics or warfare. Our British Museum are victorious of the Herosian Games, represented near to the start of the race in the 5th century about BC. In 1500 BC, a statue of a wounded Amazon who was warriors with a preference for archery, Lucia Caplotia, and acrobat featured on a campaign red figure Hydria that was about between in 340 to 330 BC. And the mosaic called the Cornotria of the winners, and the nicknamed the Winking Girls, shows Roman women engaged in such type of the swim activities like swimming or throwing a disc, or hitting a ball to each other and stepping whilst using dumbbells. Villa Romina del Casla was a great acrobat at that time, that was considered to be one of the greatest acrobat at a time, like as Ronaldo and Messi is nowadays popular, very famous and popular in the games, in the football. This Vanilla Romana del Casla was very famous in the 4th century AD. And in cholatics age, the Roma Aslara was very famous in the games and sports. And in cholatics, in a gym environment, the exercises include the lumping rings, climbing the underside of a ladder, balance beams. Balance beam was very familiar at that time, very famous at that time, and it was considered to be one of the greatest sports at that time. And people used to enjoy such type of games. And spinning around a high horizontal bar was very challenging and adventurous game at the time, that was played by the women and also by the men, but mainly the women played these games. Students cooperate to scale a high wall. The activity involves high lifting someone and walking or pulling someone up in the 19th century. And this was a 200th century women's fitness culture. Women's physical culture had many similarities to the men's, but was medically tailored toward their physical requirements. They generally meant that it is an increased emphasis on agility and reduced emphasis on the power and endurance. In general, the training was notably less intense than that induced